Hello and welcome to the Shakespeare podcast. In this episode we'll be looking at the female characters in Shakespeare's Othello, Desdemona, Bianca and Emilia. The three women in Shakespeare's Othello provide us with a kind of triptych of womankind: the noble Desdemona, the courser Emilia, and Bianca the sex worker, of whom it is explicitly stated, quote, by selling her desires, buys herself bread and clothes. Bianca and Desdemona never meet in the play, but Bianca is important not least for Iago's misogyny, which sees all women as the same. It is Iago deceiving Othello, suggesting that the mocking, scurrilous talk about Bianca is in fact about Desdemona. It is Iago who tries to implicate Bianca in the midnight ambush of Cassio and takes the high moral ground when he talks of, quote, the fruits of whoring. Bianca is flaunting and impudent. She pursues her lover in the street. She makes scenes in public. She flies into tantrums. And eventually, of course, she turns as jealous as Othello. At the same time, Bianca is both witty and intelligent. To Cassio's gallant, quote, not that I love you not, she replies with the neat deadpan, but that you do not love me. She refuses to be bullied by Iago, and when Emilia calls her strumpet, she defends herself with the lines, I am no strumpet, but of life as honest as you that thus abuse me. The opposite of Bianca, of course, is the good, virtuous Desdemona. Desdemona appears in only one scene of Act 1 and has only 29 lines in that, but the action and the debate of Act 1 centre on her. What has happened is that Brabantio's daughter has eloped, a daughter who, according to her father, is, quote, a maid so tender, fair and happy, so opposite to marriage, that she shunned the wealthy curled darlings of our nation. Desdemona's had lots of offers, something that Emilia will remind us about later in the play. So it's unlikely she'd run off with a black man, a soldier, somebody who her father has not approved of. It is made explicitly clear in Act 1 that this situation is of Desdemona's own making. It's her decision and no one else's. So the audience waits to hear from this, quote, maid never so bold, who gets up in front of the Senate, is not intimidated by her father or, quote, all this noble company, to tell us what she thinks. She does not turn to Othello for support, nor does she plead her case, nor offer any excuses for her conduct. Her speech is marked by its intelligence and clarity. She talks of duty, quote unquote, and repeats the word. She acknowledges her duty to her father, but says that her mother had to make a similar choice between father and husband, and now, quote, she challenges, no less, the right to do the same. And as Othello must go off to war, the Duke wonders what should happen to Desdemona. Again, she speaks up for herself. She bears her heart without any false shame, that she married Othello to be with him. She tells us candidly that, quote, I saw Othello's visage in my mind, and says that she has a right to be with her husband before ending the speech with the heartfelt plea, quote, let me go with him. This is, of course, a Desdemona unknown to her father, and perhaps also unknown to Othello. Brabantio cannot conceive of his daughter making her own decisions. His line, quote, she has deceived her father and may thee, which resonates later in the play, a line that Iago stores in his memory to be used to maximum effect later. But is it true? Does Desdemona deceive her father? Or is it rather that Brabantio does not know his own daughter and has never even suspected what ardour and resolve might lie beneath Desdemona's quiet exterior. Brabantio sounds like a man it's difficult to confide in, and practically impossible to discuss with him that Desdemona is in love with Othello. So, did Desdemona have any other option but to elope with Othello? After all, Desdemona is compelled to speak in front of the Senate, and it's only the threat of separation that makes her speak up again. She does so without apology or excuses. Later, when she is forced to swear to her innocence, she does so without explanation or argument or self-justification. So often has no explication for her feelings. She doesn't wear her heart on her sleeve. Quote, "I am not merry," she says, "but I do beguile the thing I am by seeming otherwise." She keeps her thoughts and feelings to herself. Her joys at the reunion scene, her response to Othello's eloquent ecstasy is, quote, "The heavens forbid, but that our loves and comforts should increase, even as our days to grow." When Othello strikes her in public, Desdemona's response is clear and matter of fact, quote, "I have not deserved this." As Othello lashes out at her, Desdemona tries to keep her marriage together by seeking out her role as his wife, quote unquote. She says that it is matters of state that's put him in the mood that he's in, that we should not think of men as gods, and even after he has struck her, she does not reproach him with it. When he calls her strumpet and whore and leaves her, Desdemona cannot bring herself to use the word herself. It's left to Emilia to do that. And beneath it all, Desdemona feels the sheer fatigue of trying to hold the relationship together on her own. When Emilia, alarmed at Othello's behaviour, asks Desdemona how she does, Desdemona replies, quote, "Faith, half asleep." There are a couple of things about Desdemona that are challenging. The first is the very obvious fact that Ludovico's arrival in Act 4 provides Desdemona with a way out. Ludovico is her cousin. Surely all she needs to do is appeal to Ludovico and the protection of Venice to save her from this alien Moor Othello, who she now realises was a mistake. Desdemona makes no such move. Secondly, how are we to understand Desdemona's innocence, which to modern audiences can seem disconcerting? She tells us that she is, quote, "a child to chiding." She doesn't know what to do with Othello's behaviour because she's never experienced it before. But with Emilia, when they are discussing wives who are unfaithful to their husbands, Desdemona says, "I do not think there are any such women." To modern audiences, this may seem either childish or absurd, but Emilia tells us what it means. After Desdemona's death, Emilia says, quote, "Oh, she was heavenly true." In other words, Desdemona wasn't just true to Othello, she was true to herself and true to her faith. And though she's dead, no one could kill her virtue or her faith. Emilia, by contrast, is made of sterner stuff. When Desdemona won't use the word whore, Emilia will. When Desdemona won't criticise her husband, Emilia denounces and condemns her husband. If Desdemona represents to us the idealised view of romantic love and the holy sacrament of marriage, Emilia has a more realistic, down-to-earth view, a pragmatic view that has left her hardened to jealousies and chidings. When Desdemona, with a clear conscience, hopes that Othello won't be jealous, Emilia's Lady Amen is far graver than her mistress realises. Emilia's view of men and their attitude to women is formed out of this pragmatism. Quote, "'Tis not a year or two shows us a man. They are all but stomachs, and we all but food. they eat us hungrily, and when they are full they belch us. Not the most poetic description, but it's in keeping with Emilia's generally tough conjugal doctrine. In Act 4, Scene 3, she tells us, quote, "Who would not make her husband a cuckold to make him a monarch?" And soon after, quote, "But I do think it is the husband's faults if wives do fall." Emilia's speech may lead us to believe that the rumours about her sleeping with Othello may have some basis for truth, or it may lead us to believe that Emilia is a proto-feminist, standing up for women in a world dominated by patriarchy. In this interpretation of the play, Othello is not a play about racism, quite the opposite, as the play shows us that all men, both black and white, are bad. Notice, for example, that Iago and Othello both murder their wives. This brings us to the wider question of guilt and redemption. To what extent is Emilia compromised by her involvement in Iago's deceitful plotting? On the one hand, the Iago we see in Act 1, envious and false, must be the Iago that Emilia knows from her marriage. Later, she refers to him as, quote, "my wayward husband." So she must have some idea what he's like. On the other hand, is it possible, or even probable, that Emilia has any idea that Iago is planning to murder Cassio and plotting with Othello to murder Desdemona? This question becomes more central when we consider the importance of the handkerchief in Othello's decision to murder Desdemona. Emilia tells us that Iago has asked her to steal this handkerchief several times. Quote, "My wayward husband hath 100 times wooed me to steal it." Emilia doesn't steal it, of course, but she admits to taking it in this way. Quote, "No faith, she let it drop by negligence, and, to the advantage, I being here took it up." It's a small distinction, and she does ask what Iago wants it for. He dismisses her. Perhaps she's found by now that it's better not to cross him or question him. But worse is to come by far, when Desdemona asks her directly, quote, "Where should I lose that handkerchief, Emilia?" Emilia replies, "I know not, madam." This is Act 3, Scene 4, before Othello has become enraged because of the handkerchief. But still, Emilia is lying to Desdemona and covering up for her husband Iago. Perhaps it is Emilia's guilt, the fact that she is complicit in Iago's plot, that gives Emilia such a strong reaction to the unfolding events. By Act 4, Scene 2, Emilia has begun to realise what Iago's plot is and how she, unwittingly, played a part in it. Iago asks Desdemona why Othello is behaving the way he is, and Desdemona says, quote, "Nay, heaven doth know." Emilia, always the one to speak up and tell it like it is, suspects what is happening and says, "I will be hanged if some eternal villain, some busy and insinuating rogue, some cozening slave to get some office, hath not devised this slander." Iago dismisses the idea that such a man exists, but this moment in Act 4, Scene 2 is a turning point in the play, and what Emilia does next, or fails to do, will determine the unfolding of the rest of the play. Iago's response is often played in productions of Othello as a threat, and certainly Iago will go on threatening Emilia several times before the conclusion of the play, from the "speak within doors" to the "you are a fool, go to." Iago continues to insult his wife in an attempt to undermine her. But Emilia will not be cowed, and in helping Desdemona to bed at the end of Act 4, she gives us her damning testimony, not just on Iago, but on all men. In Act 5, Emilia is distracted by a commotion in the street, which turns out to be the botched assassination attempt on Cassio. But she rushes back to Desdemona to try and save her. It's Emilia banging on the door as Othello strangles Desdemona. It's Emilia who is the first one to the murder scene, and Desdemona dies in her arms. Emilia is the first to question Othello and the first to hear his confession, which sets off Emilia, quote, "I must needs report the truth," and her righteous indignation at Othello, quote, "Oh, the more angel she, and you the blacker devil." But Emilia is stopped in her tracks by Othello's assertion, quote, "Thy husband knew it all," which shows us that she didn't fully understand how evil her husband is. As Othello tries to threaten her, Emilia spills the beans. All Othello's supposed ideas about his wife's infidelities or his sense of justice in killing her slowly evaporates, and Emilia adds insult to injury, calling Othello a gull and a dolt, and starts to shout, "Murder, murder." Enter Montano, Gratanio, Iago and others. It's Emilia who accuses Iago and lays out, as no one else can, how Iago has, quote, set the murder on. Iago persistently threatens her with violence, but Emilia sets out the story of the handkerchief. Eventually, Othello lunges at Iago and is disarmed, which gives Iago the chance to murder his wife and run away. And Shakespeare gives Emilia some great poetry as she dies. Quote, "More she was chaste, she loved thee more. So come, my soul, to bliss, as I speak true." And so Emilia unmasks the villain, makes Othello realise his mistake, vindicates Desdemona, and pays for it with her life. In doing so, Emilia earns herself a place in the play's tragic heaven. At the end of the play, we may reflect on who the hero is in Othello. Well, I certainly think Emilia has a good argument. From her earlier coarse comments to her poetic and tragic end, Emilia certainly has an interesting narrative arc, and one that stays with us long after the play has ended. I hope you've enjoyed this short discussion on the female characters in Shakespeare's Othello, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Shakespeare Podcast.